It was a bright morning in Ouagadougou, and the presidential palace was already full of movement. Guards stood at their posts, and ministers came and went, carrying files. Inside the palace's golden walls, President Ibrahim Traoré was meeting with his security advisors. But outside the main gate, something unusual was taking place. An elderly woman stood silently, dressed in tattered clothes. Her slippers were worn thin, and her hair was wrapped in a dusty scarf. She held a small brown bag and used a stick for support. She looked like a wandering beggar, yet she wasn't asking for food. Instead, she stood at the gate of the presidential palace with a single request. "I want to see your president," she said quietly. The gatekeeper, a tall soldier named Abdul, chuckled. "Mama, this isn't a marketplace. You can't just show up and ask to see the president." "I didn't come here by accident," the woman replied. "I've come a long way. I must speak with him." "Leave, old woman. You're causing a disturbance," Abdul snapped. Still, the woman didn't budge. She sat down on a small stone beside the gate and waited. 1 hour passed, then 2. The sun climbed higher, but she remained where she was. Passers-by began to murmur. "Who is that woman? Maybe she's not well. She should be moved." Just as Abdul prepared to drive her off again, a young female aide emerged from the palace. Her name was Khadidia. "What's happening here?" she asked. "This strange woman insists on seeing the president," Abdul said. Khadidia glanced at the woman with sympathy. But when their eyes met, something unexpected occurred. The woman's gaze was calm, wise, and serene. She didn't seem confused or unstable at all. Khadidia stepped closer. "Why do you want to speak with President Traoré?" "Ibrahim," the woman called out. "I've come with a message and a gift," she said, holding up a small brown bag. Khadidia studied her closely. "Wait here," she said, heading back inside the palace. She wasn't sure what to make of the situation, but something in her heart told her this woman was more than just a beggar. 10 minutes later, President Ibrahim Traoré received word. An elderly woman, dressed like a beggar, claims she has come from a distant land to see you. She carries a gift and says she has an important message. Rather than dismissing the report, the president stood up and said something that surprised everyone. "Let her in." The guards hesitated. "Are you certain, sir?" Abdullah asked. "Yes," President Ibrahim responded firmly. "Let her in and treat her with respect." Abdullah nodded and hurried back to the entrance. For the first time in hours, the old woman straightened up and smiled as he approached. "Mama, the president has agreed to see you," he said kindly. She picked up her brown bag and walked slowly, but with quiet pride, toward the palace. Everyone turned to watch. Some whispered, many were stunned. Who was this woman dressed like a beggar? Why had the president agreed to meet her? Modafia walked beside her, helping her up the palace steps. When they entered the main hall, the old woman paused to take in her surroundings. The marble floors, golden curtains, and sparkling chandeliers didn't impress her. Her gaze was fixed on something deeper: truth and purpose. The door to the president's office opened. President Ibrahim stood there, dressed in a simple white garment. He smiled warmly and extended his hand. "Welcome, Mama," he said. She gave a small bow and entered. They sat down. Silence filled the room as they looked at each other. No words at first. Then, slowly, the woman reached into her brown bag and brought out a small, carved wooden box. She placed it gently on the president's desk. "This," she said softly, "is my gift." President Ibrahim opened it. Inside was a smooth white stone and a neatly folded cloth with golden designs. He looked up, puzzled. "What does this mean?" The old woman smiled. "The stone comes from the river of my homeland. It's called the Stone of Mercy. It brings peace to any leader who rules with justice and compassion. The cloth was woven by widows in our community. It symbolizes strength and the blessings of women." The president was moved. "Mama, thank you, but who are you? Where do you come from?" She shook her head. "My name and my country do not matter. What matters is the message I carry." She and leaned in, her voice low but steady. "Allah's with you." The president froze. "You are not an ordinary leader. You were chosen for a purpose greater than yourself. I've seen it again and again in my dreams. I crossed deserts and borders just to deliver this to you." The president listened intently, fully present. "Do not be afraid. Do not lose hope, but remain cautious," she said. He looked at her, confused. "Cautious?" She nodded. "Not everyone around you has pure intentions. Some may smile at you yet harbor evil inside. Keep your eyes open, trust in Allah, but also be mindful of the people around you." A quiet moment followed. The president inhaled deeply. "Your words carry wisdom. Mama, how can I ever repay you?" She offered a warm smile. "Just keep doing what is right. That's the message I came to deliver." She stood slowly, then added, "One more thing." President Ibrahim rose as well, his expression full of respect. "Please, go ahead," he said. Gripping her wooden cane, she met his gaze and said, "Power is a heavy burden, but it becomes truly dangerous when it is carried with arrogance. You've done well so far, but your path is far from over. The people support you, but there are those who fear the light and will try to extinguish it." President Ibrahim nodded thoughtfully. Her words were calm, but each one landed with weight, like distant thunder. "Tell me, Mama," he asked, "do you see danger ahead?" She sighed. "Yes, I do. There are hidden threats, people who will laugh with you by day but plot against you by night. One of them is very close." He sat down again, lost in thought. "Can you tell me who it is?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I was not sent to give names. I came only to remind you, always kneel before Allah before you rise before men." She reached into her bag and took out a small rolled-up mat. "This is for prayer. Keep it in your office. When the weight becomes too much, kneel and speak to the one who appointed you. He will guide you, always." President Ibrahim accepted the mat with both hands. "Thank you. You speak like someone who has endured much and learned from it." The old woman smiled softly. "I have walked through many dark valleys, but faith helped me stand firm." At that moment, Khadija returned with a tray of food and water. She placed it gently on the table and bowed. "Mama, please have something to eat," she offered. The old woman thanked her, took a small sip of water, and gently rested her hand on Khadija's head. "You have a pure heart. Stay close to your leader and guard your heart from being corrupted." Khadija was taken aback, yet deeply moved. She nodded quietly. President Ibrahim then spoke gently. "Mama, please rest here tonight. You are our guest. I'll arrange for someone to look after you," but she shook her head. "No, my time here is over. I was never meant to stay," she replied. He tried to insist, but she raised her hand and smiled. "Let me leave the way I arrived. That's how it should be." Before stepping out, she turned and said one final thing. "Always remember, it is better to be remembered for kindness than to be feared for power." Then she walked away, slowly and quietly. Outside, the palace guards watched her go in silence. Even Abdallah, who had once questioned her presence, now looked down ashamed. He murmured to his friend, "She may look poor, but she's greater than most of us." She continued down the road, unnoticed by the world but unforgettable to the leader she had just advised. Back in his office, President Ibrahim held the stone of mercy in his hand, staring out of the window. His heart felt moved. His eyes were open and his thoughts alert. A few weeks passed since the visit of the mysterious old woman, yet her words remained vivid in his mind, like fresh dew on morning grass. He placed the small white stone of mercy on his desk and the prayer mat in the corner where he often prayed quietly to Allah. Her instructions echoed clearly. "Whenever you wish to eat or drink, keep this stone with you. If it turns red, do not consume anything. It means someone nearby means you harm." At first he was unsure, but something deep inside urged him not to ignore her warning. One bright afternoon, President Ibrahim was invited to a high-level conference in Boba Dioulasso. It was a closed-door meeting with top officials, foreign dignitaries, and major business leaders. Everything was carefully arranged. The hall looked elegant, the lighting was warm, and soft background music added to the calm atmosphere. He entered with his usual warm smile, dressed simply but neatly. Everyone stood as he walked in. "Mr. President," they greeted in unison. He nodded respectfully and took his seat at the head of a polished, long table. Plates were set, drinks poured, and a special dish prepared just for him. A tall man in a black suit leaned in and said, "Your Excellency, this meal was specially made by our finest chefs." President Ibrahim gave a polite smile. "Thank you," but within, he heard the old woman's voice again. "Don't forget the stone." Quietly, he reached into his pocket and gripped the small stone tightly under the table. He closed his eyes for a moment and whispered, "If there is danger, show me." When he opened his hand, his heart skipped. The white stone had turned deep red. He immediately clenched his fist, keeping his expression steady. There was no panic, no alarm, just calm. He smiled gently, then slowly pushed the plate of food aside. "Gentlemen," he said kindly, "please enjoy your meal. Unfortunately, I can't join you. I have a small stomach issue." Everyone nodded with concern. Sorry, Mr. President. Maybe something you ate earlier?" "Yes, your health comes first." He smiled again and stood up. "Please excuse me, I need a little rest." Before anyone could respond, President Ibrahim quietly exited the room. His guards followed closely as he stepped into his car. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked. "Take me straight home," he replied. "We're leaving now." As the car began to move, he glanced once more at the stone. It was still red. He sighed. So it's true. Later that evening, the red hue began to fade, returning slowly to white. That night, President Ibrahim sat on his prayer mat, the stone resting in one hand. "Thank you, Allah," he whispered. "Thank you for sending that woman." The following day, troubling news reached him. One of the men from the recent meeting had suddenly vanished. Another was captured while attempting to flee across the border. His security team soon uncovered something alarming. The president's food had been laced with poison. The conspirators had intended to eliminate him and seize control of the government, believing he would remain unaware. But the warning had already come from an elderly homeless woman, a stranger from an unknown land. From that day forward, President Ibrahim became noticeably more cautious. He grew wary of those around him and stopped placing his trust so easily. He confided everything to his assistant, Khadija, instructing her to keep it confidential. "We must pray before every meal," he told her, "and the stone must stay with me at all times." Khadija nodded, eyes glistening with emotion. "She saved your life, sir. That woman is no ordinary person." He smiled gently. "She was sent by Allah. I'll never forget her." 2 weeks had passed since President Ibrahim Traoré had narrowly escaped being poisoned, thanks to the mysterious woman and the stone she had given him. Since then, he never went anywhere without it. He kept it close, tucked safely in his pocket, like a silent guardian. On a bright Monday morning, he was scheduled to attend an important meeting with international investors. The plan included visiting a major construction site in the northern part of the capital. Government officials had already gathered there, and reporters stood ready to broadcast the event live on national television. As the president stepped into the car and greeted his driver, everything seemed perfectly routine. The sky was clear, birds were singing, and soldiers stood at attention. Khadija, his loyal assistant, followed behind him, clutching a set of documents. "Sir, we need to hurry," she said. "We're running a bit behind schedule," the president nodded. "Let's go." As they cruised along the wide roads of Ouagadougou, President Ibrahim slid his hand into his pocket and, as always, touched the stone. Suddenly, he felt a searing heat. His eyes widened. He quickly pulled out the stone. It was glowing red, and this time, it was burning hot. "Stop the car!" he yelled. The driver looked confused. "I said stop the car now and turn back. Take me to the palace immediately." Without hesitation, the driver followed his order and turned the vehicle around. Khadija frowned in concern. "Sir, what's going on?" "That meeting is very important. You can't just cancel it like this." President Ibrahim looked at her with calm yet serious eyes. "I said we're going back." She crossed her arms in frustration. "Sir, this is a mistake. That meeting could bring billions in investment." But he remained silent. When they arrived at the palace, he stepped out, still clutching, the red stone tightly in his hand. Without saying a word, he headed straight to his private quarters, closed the door behind him, and knelt on the mat. "Allah," he whispered, "help me understand this." As he sat quietly in prayer, a soft breeze stirred the air in the closed room. He looked up, and there she was again. The old woman stood calmly in the corner, dressed exactly as she had been the first time they met. President Ibrahim rose slowly to his feet. "Mama, it's you," she nodded. "The stone has protected you once more." He looked puzzled. "Protected me from what?" She pointed her stick at him and spoke words that made his heart race. "It was Khadija. She was sent by those who want to destroy you. She was meant to plant a bomb at that meeting. You would not have survived." The president's mouth parted slightly in disbelief. "Khadija? That's not possible. She deceived you with her soft voice and modest appearance, but inside, she carried dark intentions. She wasn't working alone. They paid her to betray you." President Ibrahim stood still, hands trembling. He called for his guards. "Search Khadija's bag and arrest her quietly. Take her to the underground security room. Tell no one." "Yes, sir," they responded, quickly leaving the room. Minutes later they returned. "Sir," one of them said, holding up a small black bag, "we found this. It appears to be a bomb trigger." The president closed his eyes, overwhelmed with sorrow. So it's true. Khadija was brought in. Her face had turned pale. "Why?" he asked gently. "I trusted you." She remained silent at first, but after hours of intense questioning by national security officers, she broke down. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't want to do it," she cried. "They threatened my family. They offered money. They said you were holding the country back." "Who are they?" the president demanded. She gave names, politicians, foreign operatives, and wealthy businessmen who wanted him gone. They feared his integrity, his popularity, and his resistance to corruption. They saw him as an obstacle to their plans. President Ibrahim felt the weight of betrayal. He had treated Khadija like a younger sister. He had believed in her. She was taken to court. The evidence was clear. After a full trial, the judge delivered the verdict. For attempting to assassinate the president of Burkina Faso and conspiring with foreign elements to undermine the nation, you are hereby sentenced to 80 years in prison, without parole. Khadija collapsed to the floor in tears. But it was too late. The nation gave thanks to Allah for protecting their leader once again. That night, President Ibrahim stood alone on the palace balcony. He held the red stone, now turned, white once more, and whispered, "Thank you." Looking to the sky, he smiled gently. May Allah bless that old woman, wherever she is. She was never seen again. No one knew her name or where she had come from, but one thing was certain: she came to save a nation. Dear viewers, if you found this video meaningful, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. And remember to turn on the notification bell, so you'll be the first to know when we release a new video. Thank you for watching.